So I was going to explain a little bit about why I built it the way I did, what I have. This log splitter, I had a beam cylinder that was given to me that had I think it's a 43 inch stroke, and so I was just going to use it, and I bought this beam from the scrapyard. It was 10 foot, gave me enough room to mount the cylinder and have enough stroke. Ultimately that cylinder exploded, so I upgraded to this. It is a new old stock for a Volvo excavator. It's 5.91 inch bore and just about a 4 inch, I think it's like 3.94 inch rod. It's rated at 3,000 psi max. The next thing that I came across, I didn't know what engine I was going to use or pump, and a friend of mine who works on heavy equipment forklifts, he had a forklift that his boss was going to give him, said we could have anything off of it we wanted. I thought it was going to be a 4-cylinder, ended up being the V6, 4.3 liter V6. That's over here. So the manifolds, I found out on the 4.3, they can be reversed from one side to the next. Maybe they all can, I don't know. And so I turned it to where it was exiting. Originally it had, on the forklift, it was exiting out here. So I got some from, I think it was a Blazer, and exit out of the rear, had the exhaust put on. But this is the pump. It has a plate on it, but we can't find any specific information on it as far as the gallons per minute. The Heister guys, this came out of a Heister fork truck, said that it's minimum of 35 gallons per minute and maybe upwards of 46. This is a casting for the forklift, so this pump goes in here. It's a wet sump. That's why I kept the bell housing where the transmission was bolt. And I put a piece of Lexan on the back just so we could see the level of the fluid. And I put hydraulic oil in it. So this sprocket and chain, so really heavy chain, that runs direct off the crankshaft. So that's why I ended up using it, because it had an engine, it had the pump already on it. This pump has 2 outlets. So one of them for this pump on a fork truck would run to the orbital valve for the steering. What I did is I used that side. It's I think it's a 1/2 inch or 3/8 line. I've got it going around into the hydraulic cooler, and the cooler is an industrial cooler, and it's rated at 3,000 psi also. So it's always circulating fluid no matter what I'm doing. And then I've got the regular outlet, which is a 3/4 inch hose. It's going up in here until my auto cycle valve. And then the other valves, so here's the inlet going into the auto cycle. And then it exits right here going down to this valve. Was taken out of the same, this set of spools was taken out of the same lift that the engine came out of. So this spool right here, which I'm not using, is for a single acting cylinder, and if I remember correctly it is. And then I've got these 3 spools that I'm using. The first one is for the log lift, and the second one is for the wedge, and this third one, just for the heck of it, because I had it, I made a hydraulic tongue jack. I've got a start stop switch here. I don't have the start switch wired up to where it will start the engine, but the stop does work. So if I'm on this side loading logs and something goes crazy, bust a hose or whatever, I can stop it without reaching over. The frame, it's 6-inch channel. I think it's 3/16. With the new cylinder, I had to come back further. The original cylinder back plate was right there, and it had a 1-inch pin. This was a little bigger than I can't even remember. It's a little over 3 inches. So what I did is I machined turned down a spacer to put in there, and then I turned this 3-inch pin that goes through. These were a set of forklift blade uprights that I cut and then milled them with a face mill, smoothed them out, and then slid them in there, cut slots into the beam, slid them in there, and I got approximately 7 pounds of a 10-pound can. I used about 7 pounds of 7018 welding that up, and it is obviously run by propane. This engine, not only did I get the engine for free, but the engine came with 2 sets of heads, and I have some additional propane. I'm not really sure what they call them, but I think he has given me one that's electric, but this one starts right up, so I haven't converted it. It had a big air filter. I wasn't sure where to put it. I ended up getting this to put on there. Works fine for what I'm doing. I went to a Pick and Save Auto and found a fan that would fit this radiator. This radiator was new, but it had been damaged in shipping. It went to another fork truck. This end here was bent down, so I soldered, heated it up, pulled the other one out, soldered a new one in, and the return, I have 3 returns on here. One for the hydraulic cooler coming into this manifold here. This one is from the auto cycle, and then my regular return that comes out of this spool on the other end goes in right here. 25-gallon hydraulic tank. I took a fuse panel from a car, small fuse panel from a Pick and Save Auto. Went and found me a decent smaller fuse panel I could wire stuff in that. And this console here came off of an old machine where I work. It was going to be scrapped, and I took everything off of it I could find, and then we end up cutting it in half and scrapping it. The push block, this is 1.25 inches. These pieces are 3/4. This is a 1-inch center. You can see the original hole for the original cylinder, and I have a video of cutting the eye off of here and then cutting it back. I end up using, it doesn't make a good cut, but I ended up using a porter band to make these slices here, and then a 1-inch by 4-inch long annular cutter to drill in here, and then ground it flush to fit up in here. And it's got a 1-inch, I think it's 1-inch pin that goes in there. This is my tongue jack, just because I had to do something different. I just wanted to do something different. So it works good. I have a video on making this. I have another video also of when I damaged the wedge. I still need to do something here. This is not very hard steel, so we're thinking of cutting it off just at the tip, hard facing it, and then grinding it down to have a harder edge, unless I can get a hold of some AR 400 or 500 to make them. This is a piece of 1/2-inch plate. This is 3/4, but this is 1/2-inch plate that I did to gusset it, give it some strength, so when you're pushing back on it, if it does get in a bind, and instead of ripping it off, it can go up against the backstop. The wedge and the backstop were made from forklift uprights, the blades. And the hitch was actually made from a forklift. This is the actual bend from the upright going to the blade, and it goes all the way up under here, and it's welded. And my table, because it absolutely sucked without a table. Everybody was saying you need a table, and I agree. So this is just pivots. It's all, and it comes down, and it's slightly under here. I was going to put a locking pin, but I decided not to, because sometimes when I'm splitting wood, if it's in a bind, instead of the wood damaging the table or catching it, it'll actually flex down. And if the wood pushes it, so, and it doesn't flop up, the weight is more to the back, so it keeps it down. So I'm just leaving it like that. It works out great. When I travel or pull it, I just use a bungee to hold it in the upright position. The log lift, it's kind of big. Well, I used what I got, and that was a roll cage from a Komatsu fork truck. And all those bars are original. I have never even finished. Those are just tacked up there, some of them, not even all of them. And I've still been using it anyway. My father-in-law and I, we put this mesh in, and I had to gusset the back, because when I initially hooked it to here, I thought this was a solid tube. It's not. Well, I thought it was a solid bar. It's a hollow tube, and it started bending it. So these are 1/4 inch thick, 1.5 by 1.5 tubing, and I welded those in, and I put this 3/4 inch bar in, tied it into this part, and it works good. I haven't had any issues. One of the biggest problems I had, now there is a video of the destruction it caused, is I did not have this bar, and when I would push a log, it would hit this bearing support and it bent it down, and the whole lift fell off, and it was just a fiasco. So what I did is I took the brackets and I cut them down to where there's a tab sticking out, and I put this bar in the mill and slotted it each side, and then I fit it down onto the tabs and welded them up. And that way, when the logs are being pushed, this bar will keep them off of the bearing support, and I've never had an issue since. And right here you can see what I mean. I need to, this is a softer metal. I got in some nasty knots, and it bent that. This is the brackets that hold it up. The other one is identical, but it has been bent a couple times. I got to put those bolts back. That support there goes back, and it's what attaches the backstop. It's not just bolted. We beveled the heck out of it and welded it up 70/18s all the way around. But I just assumed I have all that metal, that I was going to take 1-inch grade 8 bolts, and just for additional strength, so not all of the pushing is on the welds or on the bolts. They kind of work in tandem. I mean, it works. There's part of the wedge mechanism that makes the wedge adjustable. It should center. It goes up, I think it's right at a foot when you raise this up, so it'll center on a 24-inch log. I had to move this whole plate which holds the valve body. It used to be up here with the old cylinder, and when I got this big one, because this gland was so big, it wouldn't fit back in there, and the hydraulic port was at the top, so I had to slide everything back, and it just does fit. I need to get some tighter pins, get this slop out of here. But this is what I have. It's a 3,500 pound axle. I do not know the weight of this. I need to take it to a scale and get it weighed. But it pulls nice. It works good. It's not as fast as a lot of the commercial, but it splits and does everything that I want it to do. So we'll start it up and do a little bit. Alright, this pin and this bar keep this from, if I was a hydraulic failure going down the road, this thing won't go slam into the ground, this log lift. So this works the and the smaller handle, it adjusts the tongue jack. I don't want to raise it up too far, it's still hooked to the little tractor. I'm only running at about, I don't know, 600-800 RPMs. Kind of slow, but that's 1,000 RPMs. And I don't know the speed of it if I cycle it up. If I rev it up, it does go a little faster. But I need to get these detents adjusted right on the auto cycle. So this handle works the wedge. So when it goes down, it's flush with the beam. So the log will just go over it. See if I can get that thing working. So far I'm loving it. So right here, I'm splitting 3 at a time. Our insert it's kind of small, and these I split them a little smaller so my wife can handle them a little better when she's loading the insert during the day. You can see here too that the detents I still am having issues with adjusting them. Just doing little by little as the fluid warms up, it changes. So the auto cycle I'm having to adjust. The log lift works real well. I can load it up. I don't know the weight it can handle, but it lifts usually with everything I put on it except one log in the beginning. It was a humongous log, and it did not want to lift that. With a little bit of assistance it did. But these are bigger logs. I can usually split 2 at a time on these and adjust the wedge where I want it. I split some small just for an easier startup when I'm starting to fire up. But I like having most of the wood somewhat big. I like it for it to last all night when I put it in the wood stove. We have an insert and then we have a wood stove in our living room, soapstone. And the bigger the log, the longer it lasts, and so I prefer the wood to be bigger. I don't like splitting kindling. The table works out good too. It actually fits inside of this little trailer I built for my garden tractor. I can back the trailer all the way up and put the table inside of it if I want it. But I back it up to the edge, and then I can split the wood and just throw it right up on there. Instead of it going on the ground and then later picking it up to stack it in the trailer. This has made things a whole lot easier. This is the first time I've ever really had a splitter this year. I mean, I've always split everything with a maul, so I'm learning and how to make it more efficient, and I don't really need it to be going real fast. I'm not selling the firewood. I'm just splitting for myself and enjoying the time getting outside and messing with something that I made.